Hi, everybody. This is John Leon Guerrero. Over the weekend, we celebrated the birthday of the United States Marine Corps and Veterans Day. So we're celebrating veterans all week long. And I just want to give my shouts out to my favorite Marines, my Uncle Anthony Carbolito, who was always my hero growing up. He was an embassy guard in Moscow in the 80s and is a badass to this day. My nephew Jeffrey Carbolito, and our loyal listeners and great friends Monica Leahy and Brandon Hutchinson. Hoorah and happy birthday. To my family who served in other branches, Uncle Frankie, Uncle Raymond, Uncle Benny, Auntie Chris, Uncle Rand, Uncle Vince, my cousins Daryl, Jeff, Chris, Mark, actually too many cousins to name. So my primos, thank you. All of you we will never forget. Today's show features a great American hero, Dale Comstock. He is elite among the elite fighters and has not only had a distinguished career, but continues to be an example to all of us as we strive to be our best selves. We did this episode with him on Zoom, which meant that I had to watch him talk with us into his laptop with an enormous cannon of a bicep in the foreground. I've done 1,000 some odd push-ups since we recorded this show, every one of them in an attempt to not let my own inner Dale down. I love this guy, and you're going to love him too. Thank you for your service to us, Dale. And to my partner on this show, Pete A. Turner, a guy who has shared so much valuable perspective with me, has given so much of himself to the cause of our freedom. I say thank you, my brother. Thank you for being there for me and my family and every one of us Americans. Thank you. And thanks, everybody, for listening in. And now, Dale Comstock.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl Andy.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summit.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
All right, good morning, everybody from Bali, Indonesia. This is Dale Comstock on the Break It Down show. Ready to spend some time with you and tell you a little bit about my world.
And now, the Break It Down show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Terrific. Dr. Dale Comstock is a true American badass. He's the founder and president of Strategic Outcomes Asia and Strategic Outcomes Indonesia, both companies that provide security services to keep people safe around the world, which is something you've done for years and years and years as a retired U.S. Army. You retired from the Army in August of 2001, having been a Special Forces soldier, a Green Beret, and a Delta Force guy. And, you know, we've had Special Forces guys on the show, a number of SEALs, and thank you, by the way, for your service and for keeping us safe many years. We don't hear from Delta Force guys too often. You guys like to keep it quiet.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, I'm probably the only loudmouth out of the group. But, you know, the units, you know, they take this quiet professionalism very serious. Always have. You know, it's beaten into our brains, mind OPSEC, and to be the quiet professional, right? Because they understand the importance of it all. So, yeah, you don't hear much of them, you know, about them and their exploits. Every now and then something will come out that doesn't even really make the radar. But if you dig deep enough, you'll read a story about something that allegedly they were a part of. But I can tell you that these guys are operating every day globally in some of the most dangerous places, doing some of the most dangerous jobs. Always have been before the wars and still are and will always be out there getting it, even in peacetime. You know, because it's a tier one unit. What a lot of people don't understand is, what does that mean, tier one, right? I had someone message me yesterday, go, hey, are Green Berets still considered tier one? And I said, no, they never were considered tier one, because tier one is really a level of readiness that basically a nuclear-powered submarine is tier one, right? Certain aircraft that would transport the Delta Force would be considered tier one. The unit, what tier one means is you're always in a state of war. Even in peacetime, you're funded as if you're in a state of war, because you're actually always doing operations. That's why you're considered tier one. So Green Berets are not always in a state of war, nor are the Rangers and others. So that tier one designation goes to only certain units and certain military assets, I guess. But yeah, you know, going back to the original question, you know, about being quiet professionals, you know, like I said, I'm probably the only loudmouth, and the reason I came out when I wrote my book, American Badass, was, you know, I didn't break OPSEC. I have I've been trained as an OPSEC manager through the NSA. I understand OPSEC and how that works. So what I put out there was nothing that was classified or any way named places, people, and operations and things like that. So, but I did want to shed a little bit of a positive light on the organization because they don't get any kind of notoriety. And I felt like in some way the quiet professionals that are out there in the shadows doing the bidding for the Americans, I thought it would be, I think they deserve it, to some degree, because they're not going to get any other kind of recognition. Not that they want it. I just get kind of tired of hearing about SEAL this, SEAL that, even when I travel around the world, everybody thinks it's all about the SEALs. And I'm, Jesus Christ, man, I always tell them the SEALs carry my they carry my equipment and my lunch for me, But I got a lot of good SEAL friends, though. It's about being the quiet professionals, and there's a huge difference between them and their counterparts out there that are writing books and making movies and stuff like that. So,
well, we appreciate you telling us about it because there's a lot of inspiration in your service and how much that everybody sacrifices and to keep us and our freedom safe. So we certainly don't on this show take it for granted. Thanks for, I guess, being a loudmouth. So you have, the thing that intrigues me about you is that you have advanced degrees in a lot of things. I mean, you are a true student. There are a lot of guys who think that guys who kick down doors are good at kicking down doors. But you have truly studied every aspect of the mindset of folks who do bad things and the mindset of how to deal with them, I suppose.
In honor of my father, give you a little backstory. It was kind of my inspiration to be all that I can be. Remember, that was the old Army motto, be all that you can be. So I came in during that time as well, be all that you can be. But my father was kind of the inspiration for me. My little backstory, nobody on my mother or my father's side had a college education. In fact, my dad had 11th grade education. My mom had a 9th grade education. And they really wanted me to be the first Comstock to go to college. My dad was in the Army for 20 years, and I loved the military culture, and I wanted to be a part of it. So without telling him, I snuck down to the recruiter's office, and I enlisted, and to his dismay, he was pretty disappointed in that. And so I promised him that I would earn my college degree, even though I was in the Army, and that I would make him proud of me. So pretty much everything I have done in my life, man, in a lot of ways was for my father, in honor of my father. And my father passed away 5 years ago. And basically it was at that point where I feel like now I'm actually a big boy. I'm on my own. I don't have my dad anymore as my sounding board, as my guide, my mentor. And now I'm on my own. And now I have to basically mentor my children, set the example for them. But all the things I've achieved, I'm an uber achiever, I'm kind of like a shark in the water. If I stop moving, I'll drown and die. And so that's how I feel, and I got to keep doing things. I get bored very easily. I had a zest for education. I certainly believe in the old, saying knowledge is power. The more you know, the more resilient you are and the better you can cope with the world and the realities of life that some people have a very terrible time with. It's just a hunger for education and experience and learning more and living life to the fullest. And that's what drives me. My biggest fear is that one day I'm going to run out of things to do, and that's when I'm going to die. So I keep adding stuff on the bucket list. So I got 2 things on the bucket list. I know it's going to take me a while to get to them, but I figure the longer it takes me to get to those things, the longer I will live. One is I want to master the guitar, and 2 is I want to learn how to fly a fixed-wing aircraft. So I'll keep those on the list, like on the bottom of the list somewhere. So I got a long ways to go to get there. I just keep plugging things in there to keep me alive. So
that's funny because those 2 things don't sound too terribly difficult given all the other stuff you've done.
Yeah.
Just for our listeners, your combat tours include Grenada, Iraq, Somalia, Panama, and Afghanistan. And so you've been out there a while doing a lot of things. You hold several black belts. You were a professional fighter, fought in the first sanctioned Vale Tudo. Holy cow, what haven't you done? I mean, your academic awards are long and thorough. And here's one of your black belts. You have a black belt in jiu-jitsu, which is not an easy feat. It takes many years to achieve. You also have a black belt in American karate. Is that Ed Parker?
No, that's actually Jim West, Smokey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was my coach, my trainer, my manager for a very long time. Actually, he trained My son started out in assistant at the age of 4. By the time he was 7, got his first degree black belt. My daughter started at 7, at 10, or at 9, she got her second degree brown belt. Of course, I earned my black belts. In fact, I'm only aware of 3 students, including me and my son, that earned black belts through Jim West's school over the years. You know, if you want to learn how to fight, Jim West is the guy that'll teach you how to fight. You know, I mean, he's a wild man, but he's an expert at what he does. And I really enjoyed working with him, and we're still good friends today. But yeah, he's the guy that trained me, got me going from, you know, just a white belt right on up into professional fighting. He started boxing, or managing me as a professional fighter as well, both as a boxer and an MMA fighter and a kickboxer.
Wow.
But, you know, everybody asks me, how was you able to do all these things? And all of it's verifiable, because I know there's always somebody out there that's, you know, the naysayer has some doubts, but everything is verifiable. I post my DD-214. I think it's on LinkedIn. So, you know, nobody can question my military background, but I've got all my diplomas. I've got everything. And sometimes I post it out there and put it out there because, you know, there's always somebody going to question you and blah, blah, blah. But how was I able to achieve so much is not so much as time management, right? But it was basically taking advantage of any free time that I had and getting with it until I was complete, and not dragging my heels. So, you know, I had to sacrifice a little bit of myself, but what I never did was sacrifice my family. And here's one example of what I mean by that. So I got my bachelor's degree while I was in the Army. Now, while I was in the Army for 20 years, bear in mind, I spent about 16 years kicking indoors and humping a rucksack. I spent 2 years as an instructor for the operator training course, and then I spent 1.5 years on the 3rd Special Forces Group Assistant Ops NCO. So 16 out of my 20 years was all action guy stuff. So what I had to do was figure out, okay, the time that I'm actually out in the field, I'm doing things, how can I exploit that opportunity to better myself? So I would actually take books with me. If I deployed, went to the field or whatever, if I had a moment off or I had some free time, I'd break out those textbooks and start reading. I used to tell my family, like, you know what, I'm your father, I'm your husband, and I'm going to make time for you. But, you know, I've also got to improve myself so that I can improve our station in life. So what I would do is, when I was getting my master's degree, I never studied during the day around my family. When I was with my family, it was our time. When my kids, my wife went to bed, I'd go to bed with her, do what you're supposed to do with the husband, and then I'd get back up, go out in the kitchen, turn the lights on, break the books out, and then start studying, till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, burn the midnight oil. And during my lunch breaks, I'd go off by myself and study. That's the kind of things I had to do. I had to sacrifice my sleep, my personal time. And to be honest with you, I never really sacrificed that much of my personal time because concurrently, while I was getting my master's degree, I was still fighting. I was still boxing. I was still kickboxing, on a professional level. So I had to do that. I was still in SF. So I had to budget my time a little bit and find the gaps in my schedule to fill them with something that was productive. Biggest mistake a lot of people make is they just can't focus. Originally, when I remember back when it was 1998 and the first computer started coming out, I bought the first compact computer with all the bells and whistles and printers and stuff. I think I spent like $3,000 on this machine, and I had 4 gigabytes of hard drive. Think about that, 4 gigabytes hard drive.
Yeah.
Man. And so I was somebody, man. And so we got this computer, we brought it home, and I started playing around with it. And then I discovered video games, right? I remember I had a CD for a flight simulator, F-17 Raptor flight simulator. And man, I got so addicted on that thing. I throw it in the machine thinking I'm going to play like for 30 minutes, at 8 o'clock at night, and then go to bed. Next thing I know, it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I got to go to work here now. And I was doing that on a lot, right? So I became that guy that was like getting addicted to these daggone video games. And that's just not who I am. And it took me a couple of weeks, and finally I woke up one day, had an epiphany, and realized this was a huge mistake. I looked at the time that I spent screwing around on this computer, these video games. I said that could have been better used trying to improve myself through studying or whatever. And that was my change, where I put all that crap down and refocused on school. And really, I haven't played video games since then. It's always focused on personal development, and doing things that are substantive and make me happy in life. look, I go out and have a good time. Always have. I go out and party. I go dancing. I don't sacrifice my life. I have a good time with my kids. I feel like I've given all that I can give of myself, yet I've also not neglected myself. I make sure that, at least for their sake, I've always tried to better myself. It comes back to that. At the end of the day, it's not so much about me as it is about them, but I got to improve me to improve them.
Damn. Now I feel like I need to go do some work.
No shit. Wow.
No, but I identify with that, Dale. I mean, I think that's part of what pushes guys like us in the Army is, all right, we're going to be in this foreign area. I'm going to work on language while I'm here, and yeah, I'm going to use an interpreter all the time, but if I can add 500 words, the next time I add 500 words of another language, and I got a master's degree while I was in, and literally, you know how this goes. I'm in a unit. It's a TRADOC unit. It's a training unit for the audience. Everybody outranks me by a mile. I'm like the youngest guy in there, basically. And, I'm like, I need to do something. And so my boss comes to me. She says, well, why don't you get a master's degree? And I'm like, oh, all right. She's like, and we'll get the unit to pay for it because nobody else in the entire unit is even using that money. It's laying there. So not only do I get to develop myself and get a master's degree, but the Army's going to pay for it. It's just that constant thing, like if there was a manual to read, I was going to read it. And I needed to have as much knowledge as possible so that when you go into an impossible situation, you've got a lot of context to apply to your impossible situation.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of veterans mess up, man, while they're on active duty. They don't take advantage of what's out there available to them, like education. And the truth is, I was inspired by a lot of my peers that were getting their college degrees. I'm looking at going, man, he's getting this 4-year degree. Man, he's getting a master's degree. I'm looking at myself, what am I doing, right?
Yeah.
They also inspired me to move forward. And then I realized, man, there's so many assets out there available to us, like resources, the VA stuff. And I took advantage of it. I got my bachelor's degree and my master's degree and had basically the government paid for most of that, I just had to pay it in time, my time. I made my sacrifice, and the government compensated me for that, But at the end of the day, I'm better for it. A lot of guys, I'm just surprised they go their whole career and just don't take advantage of any of that, And here's what really used to irk me the most: is you watch a command sergeant major and the commander, right? They're side by side. They're running an organization or a unit. They both retire. The commander goes off and gets a white-collar executive job somewhere, and the sergeant major goes out and drives a roach coach on Fort Bragg selling hamburgers to the guy in the range, or selling insurance. That was the norm. And I'm like, that's sad because at the end of the day, that sergeant major was really the guy running everything. This is the guy that was really running everything,
Yeah.
And because he gave so much of himself, he didn't make time for himself for his post-military life. And so he's relegated to what, he can do, which unfortunately for a lot of guys, not all sergeant majors, but I've run into a lot of sergeant majors driving a damn roach coach, and back then. And I thought, man, something wrong with that picture, And so that was the other thing that kind of drove me to better myself, because I knew that when I retired, I said, look, I'm not going to go and drive a roach coach or sell insurance. And nothing wrong with selling insurance. My dad sold insurance did very well at his own business, right out of the military. But I felt like, man, if that big guy next to me can go up there and be a white-collar executive, somewhere making tons of money, well, then I can too, And so that was my mission, was to get out, better myself, start my own company, and then have these guys come work for me. That's really and that actually happened. My first company was Global Security Consultants Incorporated, and I had started pre 9/11 and got heavily involved in the nuclear security realm. The company grew really fast, and then, of course, 9/11 happened and started really growing fast. And basically I had guys that were, I had resumes and applications from some of my squadron commanders that wanted to come and work for the company. I didn't even know I owned the company. That was the funny part. I know a lot of guys that have come there that I know all about the falsified resumes and bios and, the stuff that's embellished. I'm like, man, they might fool these guys, but they're not fooling me but anyways, I wanted to be at another level, and I felt like a lot of times, especially in the non-commissioned officer corps, enlisted corps, we cut ourselves way, way, way too short. And there are resources out there for self-improvement, for professional development. You can be so much more, and I recognized that early on. And I made sure that at the end of the day, when I walked out of the service, that I was set up for success. I didn't have to go groveling or ask somebody else for a job. They can come to me and ask for a job. I have never worked for anybody else since I retired in 2001. For the last 17 years, I've been independently employed. I've always either worked as a contractor. I've had 3 companies now. This is my 3rd company. Sold 2 of them successfully, started them, sold them. And this is my 3rd one. I don't plan on selling this one. This one I plan on, keeping forever, handing off to my kids and my family, That's the mission now. But, yeah, I just think that sometimes, guys just they just don't take advantage of it. It's mind-boggling. And there's always an excuse. Well, I got a family, I got the job, Man, so did I. I had a family. I got a job. I had so much going on, and then some. You got to just do it. Stop making excuses. Just do it, man. And that's one of the things the military. Funny thing is, the military actually inculcated that mindset into me. Being in the unit was always driven into our head. You could be anything you want to be. Just apply yourself and do this. And so that mindset was taught to me. And I know it's taught to all the soldiers out there, but it seems like not all the soldiers take advantage of that. To their own. At the end of the day, they get out of the military and they're running around looking for a job. And I'm like, well, why did you stay in the military? At least you had a good job. Actually, you have the best job in the military. People don't want to believe that. But I tell them, you know what? I love the military. And if I wasn't as old as I was and I didn't have so much at stake now, I would love to go back into the military if they had me. The military is the best culture in the world. The people, the discipline, everything about it, man. I just love the military, and it's so much better than working in the corporate world. I've been there. I worked for a company called Guardian Glass. When I initially got out of the Army, my company wasn't taken off yet, right? I was already out campaigning to grow it, and I had to take a job at a glass company, right? A company called Guardian Glass. It's a Fortune 250 company down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I always joke, I went from being a Green Beret to a glass maker, right? And we would make glass, like, window panes and stuff like that, and it was a pretty interesting process, but it was a miserable job because the people I had to work around were non-military type people. And it was an industrial park, and it was just, man, it was like herding cats all day long. And they didn't have the same kind of respect for the command or the authority or management like you do in the military. They're like, screw you, I'm not going to do it. What are you going to do about it? Because they're covered by so many rules and laws protect them, that it just got away with so much. So for me, it was a real leadership challenge, and I was really miserable. I did the best that I could. Actually, I had a very good position. I got hired as a superintendent, which meant, I ran I ran the special forces of the glass section, right? So the very far end, the special operations section, which was actually making the glass, putting it in the furnace, and the tin baths and, the technical stuff. I got assigned that job, which was like promoted to the top. It was still miserable. And the walk away from that was, there's nothing like the military, man. Nothing like the military. A lot of people that are out there working in the civilian world, you're probably if they're working for paramilitary companies, you're around your kind, right? You're still around other veterans, so it's not so bad. Try walking out there and working in a company of 350 people that are pretty much all civilians. And man, that's an eye opener. Such a difference in mindset, work ethic, urgency. What you and I would knock out in 1 hour, some people take 1 week to do. It's like, geez, why was that so hard? Just totally different. So, we were talking before the show, veterans kind of cut themselves short even when they get out. First, a lot of times they don't properly prepare themselves before they get out. And then when they get out, they cut themselves short and don't realize that the skill sets they have they're like gold, man. They're huge. And they're head and shoulders usually among their peer group in the civilian world. They just don't realize it. They think they go out there and they're going to work for company X and they're going to work side by side with their civilian peer group, and they feel like they're already under the, behind the power curve because they don't have that guy's knowledge and experience. When in fact, you really do, and more so. And so guys, again, they cut themselves short. You don't have to be, you don't have to be the bottom dweller, man. You can be king if you want to. Just apply your military know-how, man. The things you learn in the military, just use it. Just apply it, man. Think out of the box and use it. You'd be surprised how much better you do than your peer group out there. I had almost 40 supervisors, superintendents that were on my parallel, and I outperformed them all. You know how I outperformed them all? I did cool stuff like I developed a job skills matrix. Basically, I used an Excel sheet, put everybody's name on there, what were they trained in, right? What department, what were they trained in? And then I put it on the intranet of the company, right? And all of a sudden, all the other supervisors go, hey, I need a guy to fill this slot here. I'm missing a dude. Well, I can pull a guy from this department. It was just that simple. And, man, they thought it was like magic, you know. I learned how, but we wrote their evaluation report system. Their evaluation report system was something like this. John Doe comes to work every day on time. Like, so that's what he's supposed to do, right? So, I would write, hey, John Doe comes to work, 15, 30 minutes prior to work every day, and he cleans the toilets, that's an excellent bullet. But they didn't understand that. But I started implementing what I learned in the military, and I walked on water. Like, whoa, book that guy even higher, It's just so simple. But people don't really realize that sometimes. Now, this was a long time ago, but I'm sure nothing's really changed. I still work around the corporate sector, particularly here in Bali. I don't know if I mentioned that, but I live in Bali. I live in Bali and in Florida, but most of my time is here in Bali. I got a home here. But even here, I get to work around civilians, and just a different breed. The mindset's different. Culturally, it's just not the same. Even if these people are Indonesian here, they still have that corporate mindset like the Western world. It's like, if I don't get it today, I'll get to it next week. Whatever.
So it seems to me that everywhere you've gone in the military, and then even after your military service, after you retired, your objective is to get the most out of every minute, out of everything you do. And in doing that, you've also appeared in several films as an actor and a stuntman. Tell us what you encountered in that world.
Yeah. So again, I'm still actually involved in movies and TV shows. I'm a shareholder in a production company. We actually have 6 movies on the shelf right now that we're getting ready to promote through Netflix or Amazon, depending on which one wants to buy them. But I'm still doing it. I was on the series on a new SWAT TV show. I was on the first season, and I'm still working some other movie deals right now as well. Hopefully, something positive comes out of that. But besides that, I'm writing another book. I still provide tactical training out there. I do a lot of different things, but the Hollywood aspect of it, I never intended to get into Hollywood. I had actually, of all things, a SEAL actually recommended me to a producer from Discovery Channel, and because he was coming up with a concept for a TV show called One Man Army. And he goes, oh, you got to check this guy out. And they called me and said, would you be interested, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, well, okay. I thought it was going to be like a one-time deal. So, and I was getting ready, anyway, I said, okay, I'll do it, So I went through the whole interview process, got selected. Apparently I had a good showing on that series. And I got called by NBC right after that. Said, hey, we're doing a television show called Stars and Stripes. They didn't tell me it included Terry Crews, but they asked me if I would be interested in it. So I did. I interviewed. The interview process was actually pretty long. It included me flying all the way out to Universal Studios and get in front of the whole camera crew and all the producers, and they asked me a bunch of questions, and then, I would answer them, and they either liked me or they didn't. So out of over 2,000 applicants, I believe 8 of us got selected, including Chris Kyle, among others, and American Sniper. And so that's how I ended up on there. But things got I learned a lot from being on television and just seeing how the production is, the creative content of this whole thing and how it's actually operation, how they run this thing. And it's actually quite complex. Like, for example, Stars and Stripes, that NBC show was massive, man. I bet you they had a battalion-sized unit out there running generators and trailers and makeup artists and, food and it was like a military camp is what it was, just to film, this show. And I thought about organizing, do it in a way, the safety's there, all aspects of it. I mean, we're pretty impressive for the most part. It's actually not easy work. I thought, it'd be easy. But it can actually be kind of tiring. Very long days. We would show up on I did other shows, other movies, and other TV shows since then. And almost every time I got to be there at the studio at 4 a.m. in the morning. And I like to sleep. But I got to be there at 4 a.m. in the morning. And we used to run till, 10 o'clock at night and get cut loose and come back and do it again and again and again. So they're very tiring days. But one of the things I found kind of surreal was one, if you had a chance, and actually you can download it on I think on YouTube or somewhere like that. Stars and Stripes, episode 1 and 2. Terry Crews almost drowned on me, right? And so he almost drowned me trying to save him from drowning. But and I thought, Jesus Christ, man, he was kind of crazy there because he started going under, he started drowning. It took me a while to get the safety boats waved in to get him out of the water. And I walked away thinking, man, how surreal is that? What if Terry Crews would have actually drowned on the TV show with me? And that's kind of freaky. I always expect that kind of stuff from the military. And then I was on another show that it never made it on air, but it did make the news. It was another Discovery Channel up. We had a fatal helicopter crash, and that included the pilot, a cameraman, and a guy named Mike Donatelli. Mike Donatelli was also a former Ranger, Green Beret in the unit. He's a good friend of mine, and he was on that bird when it crashed. And what happened was at the last minute, he and I switched places. Basically, he got on the bird, throw a rucksack out as part of this one scene that we were going to do, and then my job was going to be to take his job and actually do the narration on the ground. And we decided last minute, for the betterment of the show, it'd be best if he did that and I did this. Well, to my regret, to this day, and the helicopter crashed at 3 a.m. in the morning out in the desert and killed everybody on board. And so it never made it to, never made it to the show or anything like that. And I'm thinking, man, how is that possible? Because the crash was actually very catastrophic. It was not, it was not something anybody really wanted to see. I ended up going down there and finding the bodies, and actually I found one of the bodies. He was still alive, but he passed on me in about 4 minutes before anybody can get in there and assist. But there's some things that have happened in Hollywood that just kind of makes me shake my head, go, Jesus, man, it's not so safe after all. Shit happens. You just can't control certain things. In fact, to this day, they don't know why that helicopter crashed. They don't know what happened. There was a very, detailed investigation from the FAA and others. They never determined why it crashed. My opinion is just my personal opinion. Is something happened to the pilot. Maybe had a heart attack.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner breaking into the program, and we've got one of our very special highlighted veterans on. Now, Jason, you've been a guest on a previous episode, but what I want to give folks is an idea of what you do for veterans. So if there's someone in their life who's a service member, or if they are a service member and they're transitioning or post-transition or struggling and they're trying to figure out what else can I try, I want them to understand what you do and what you offer so that we can go from there. Give us an idea. Break it down for us. What it is that you do for veterans.
So a quick breakdown of that, not to mention the nonprofit work, not to mention everything else, but the meat and potatoes of my business is alternative careers and career transitions. And I use franchise businesses and other business models approved by the FTC as a way of creating a no-cost, no-obligation educational program that I kind of call the option C to your TAP program and your career transition.
Nice. And then what kind of resources do you provide? I mean, I know you do the free coaching thing, but what else is available within that world?
So in that world, I can actually link up any of my clients with franchisors. I work with hundreds of franchisors where they are in the agreement that they will be providing an educational program and not trying to sell. So it's a safe space. They're trying to educate you on their business so that you can actually make a clear, educated, well-informed choice. I also work with funding opportunities, funding businesses that are geared directly towards funding veterans and their spouse.
That's great because not a lot of us have $500,000 or...
Right. We do offer credit repair, of course, but the biggest thing is helping you get that SBA loan. Or that SBA Express loan, and being able to take advantage of your veteran opportunities, your veteran benefits in relation to those types of government funding.
Oh, that's great. Well, listen, if anything, we're trying to help save some people's lives, turn some lives around, enrich lives, and I'll get everybody going in a positive direction. So if you guys want to look up Jason, he's real simple. He's been on the show, so you can talk to me at Pete A. Turner. But you can also grab Jason on his social media channels.
That's right. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, at USourceCoach. Search Jason Madden, you'll find me.
Perfect. Hey, man, thanks. From one spot to another, I think you're an all right dude.
Thanks, brother.
detailed investigation from the FAA and others. They never determined why it crashed. My opinion is just my personal opinion. Is something happened to the pilot. Maybe had a heart attack. Maybe got vertigo. And he just drove that helicopter into the ground full speed. So, anyways, that's some of my.
But don't blow past this whole thing with you and your partner switching spots. I mean, that's Waylon Jennings, and that ate at him his whole life. How have you reckoned with that? I mean, that is a heavy load to have to carry.
Yeah, it's actually really hard, especially in the beginning, because I found him and I held him in my arms, and I looked at him. I thought, geez, he and I have a lot in common. At the time, both our wives were Hispanic. We have the same age children, both SF, same military background. We both like to box, we sparred together, and I'm thinking, man, he should be holding me right now and not me holding him. And so that was a hard thing to reconcile for a very long time, especially with the family, because how do you deal with that, and the family was destroyed over all this. And I was really nervous about it, all that. And one day I got a call from Mike Donatelli's wife. And basically, she told me, this was a few months later, and she had told me they're going to celebrate Mike's birthday anyways up in Pennsylvania. They would like me to come and be a part of it, And I was like really kind of relieved because I didn't know, if they hated me, if I was going to get a lawsuit. I didn't know what was going to happen to me over this whole thing, I just didn't know. I spoke with the father when it initially happened. I explained to him what happened and tried to ease his mind on everything. But I really didn't know. And then I heard all the lawyers coming out, and all the lawsuits were flying. And I thought, geez, how's this going to turn out for me? And then I got that call. They invited me to Pennsylvania. So I went up there, and they actually had a big deal. Mike's family's Italian, and his wife's family's Cuban. So it was a Cuban-Italian they had circus tents out there, bands and stuff. It was like a big carnival. It was a celebratory thing to celebrate Mike's life, in remembrance of him. And I'll never forget when I pulled up in my rental car, and I really had no idea what to expect. Absolutely not, I didn't know if I was going to get daggers or what was going to happen to me. And so I was really, really nervous. And I walked out, and I walked into this large group, and I'm looking around for someone that I might recognize. And I didn't have to wait long when the father walked up to me, and Mr. Donatelli, and he just took me to the side, and he asked me, he goes, I want to ask you a question, He goes, there was one survivor who was at my son, And so, I had to reckon with him right then and there. And he wasn't mad at me or anything like that. He actually thanked me, and he was glad that I was me there with him at the end. And then I met the rest of the family, and actually they were very welcoming. They basically, took me in as one of their own. And since then I've been in good standing. I've got an invite to come back anytime. So I almost have another family in a way, and it's become a part of me in a lot of ways. I think about them all the time. There's not a morning that I never woke up and didn't think about Mike. I think about him all the time. What have I, on a personal level, I've just come to realize that things just happen. And, I can carry around this survivor's remorse forever, but it is what it is. And maybe it's for a reason. At least what I can do is try to be good for the family, be there for them when they need me, and try to do something positive, at least in his name, moving forward. But it's been a tough thing. Who'd have known? If I'd have known that would have happened, I'd have jumped on that helicopter. Hell, I know it was going to happen. I wouldn't have let either one of us get on the helicopter. But I wish now it was me and not him. But it's just not how it works out.
Man, that's a heavy story.
Yeah, that was tough.
I'm glad to hear that the family has accepted you. I mean, I could never understand what it would be like to be his dad, and the pain of burying the kid. But I think there was probably some comfort in the fact that, that you were there, that you saw him before he died, that he was able to take some comfort with one of his brothers before he moved on. Yeah. And I think that, if anything, that's probably something his dad was able to see a little bit of you in him, or a little bit of him in you during that meeting.
Well, and you're also not going to waste that life that you got back. Like they want to see somebody do something with that.
No, that's actually a good point. I think about that all the time, and I think about everything I do in life, and I even embrace life even more. I always have, because just the nature of the beast, of the work that we've done, the military life, some of the things I've experienced. I realize just how precious life is, and it can be snatched away just like that. One helicopter ride and it's gone, And so I live every day to the fullest, and that's why I do so much. There's nothing I'm not willing to try at least once, just to experience it. And I live, I don't want to say a carefree life, but I still live with some caution because I want to stay alive, because I got children to take care of. But ultimately, I enjoy every minute of the day that I'm on this planet, man. Every day. I don't care how bad it is, what my situation is. I just don't let things get me down anymore, ever.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's so okay. Let's talk to some of the people that are the corporate folks who are sitting there rocked back in their chairs, that got their headphones on, and they're tooling through life and trying to figure out how to do all the things. Like you say, like, you've got time, do it. But how does someone start doing it? Like, what's the step before that, so that when they decide to go to the gym again, or when they decide to go volunteer and do this specific task or get educated, what are those things that allow people to get up out of that chair and off the TV and put down Facebook and turn the TV, all those things? What do you do? Like, no shit, how do you get going?
Yeah, so I provide optimal performance coaching also. So again, on my spare time, which is not a lot, I'll actually get up at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning in Bali just to coach somebody online back in the U.S. or some part of the world via, Zoom or WhatsApp or some other Skype or something like that. But normally what I do is, the guys that come to me and girls that come to me, usually they find themselves in a place where they're having almost a midlife crisis at the age of about 45. They wake up one morning, they look in the mirror, they realize they're pregnant, and then they ask themselves, what have they done besides give all of themselves to their family all these years? And then they've left nothing in the gas tank for themselves. They're sitting on the couch depressed and wondering what are they going to do now, And they've always aspired to do more. And they've always put it off till, next week, next year, when the kids are gone, And then that time never comes around. They keep putting it off. So I tell people, it always stands with changing your mind. Challenge paradigms. Don't listen to everybody else, because 90% of the time most people are wrong, or they don't really have a base of experience to be talking to them. It's all opinion. I'm okay with taking opinions, but do what you analyze the situation, and then you decide what's the best course of action, and you implement it. You can take advice from others, kind of let that factor in, but be very careful, because people will always try to talk you out of what you want to do. They'll tell you why you can't do it, or why it's a bad idea. I call them firefighters. Okay. What you want is firelighters in your life. You want to surround yourself with people that will drive you, say, you can do this, man. It will push you. They'll encourage you. They're going to clap for you because you're doing well. Those are the people you want to surround yourself with. So I tell people, first of all, you got to change the way you think, challenge the paradigms. Ask yourself, what do you want to do? What do you want to really be? It's called self-actualization. What do you want to actually be one day? And so, where do you see yourself, in 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now? Abraham Maslow calls it self-actualization. Only about 2% of the population has ever really self-actualized. In other words, met all their objectives, became the person that they had in their mind that they saw themselves as. Only about 2%. Everybody else gets distracted with, day-to-day life, family, finances, sickness. That there's always an excuse, work, why they can't do for it. They make this New Year resolution, and that lasts for about a week, and then it goes away, and then the excuse is, I had to work, next week, and then next month, and then another year goes by. Okay, this year I'm really going to do this, and this cycle starts again. Nothing happens. You got to change the way you're thinking, and that's what I tell all my students is, challenge paradigms, because a lot of times people will tell you things that are just wrong, and you buy into them, and because you buy into them, you limit yourself. Think outside the box. As I was saying earlier about the veterans, they find themselves in the corporate world, and they put themselves in this box that they're supposed to be in, and they can't think out of the box. I was very successful in a little bit of time that I was in the corporate world, just by thinking out of the box. doing things that was unconventional for that industry, bringing something else to it, like how to write an evaluation report based on the NCR, or how to do a job skills metrics, how to write a DH6, all these little tools and skills I learned in the military, it was big medicine in the corporate world. But you've got to change the way you think. You've got to set a goal. You've got to commit, and then you got to have a plan. You're never going to go anywhere in life unless you actually have a strategy to get there. It's called the law of action. The law of action says in order to self-actualize, to become the person you want to be, you actually have to do something to that end, right? So here's one of my little stories that I give my students. So right before I retired out of the Army as a master sergeant, married, I had 3 kids, didn't have a lot of money back then. And I took my family up to Washington, D.C., and I wanted to take them to the Kennedy Center to show them, let them go see a play with me. I thought it'd be really cool, do something different. When I showed up at the box office to buy the tickets were like some crazy amount of money, like $100, $150 a piece per ticket. I got 5 people standing. I'm thinking, geez, if I buy all these tickets, we're going to be pushing the car back home because, we don't have any money left, And so I was not expecting that. And so I had to apologize to my family, tell them, hey, look, sorry, guys, can't do this, Dad, can't afford it, And my kids and everybody was very understanding. That's cool, Dad, let's go get Dairy Queen and then go bowling or something, And, they were good with that, but I was embarrassed as a father and as a husband that I couldn't come through for them on something like that. And I really wanted to do that for them. And so I remember beating myself up in the car the whole way, and just beat myself down. And at that point, I had already started delving more into autogenic conditioning, and this whole idea of self-actualizing. And I started at that time already. I started listening to self-help videos or DVDs and tapes, and what I had learned was basically how to apply some of these principles of self-actualizing. And so what I did from that point on is I told myself, I make $250,000 a year. That's what I kept telling myself. I say, I make $250,000 a year. Now, of course, my conscience is going, that's bullshit. You don't make $250,000 a year, Comstock. You might make $38,000 a year. Maybe. So I knew that, but that's not the point behind this. The point is you have to have self-affirmations, give yourself positive thoughts, think in a certain way, and cultivate a certain mindset. And so I started telling myself that. I started writing it down on sticky notes. I make $250,000 a year. I'm successful, blah, blah, blah. And then this was my last year before I retired. And then I started my other company before I got out, finished my master's degree. And within 1 year, I was making $250,000 a year. So that actually came true. And it was my mindset. So just because I said I'm going to make $250,000, it doesn't mean like, poof, all of a sudden it just happens. I had to do something to get to that point. And so what I did is I entered the master's program, got my master's degree in business and organizational security management. I had a vision. I said, okay, I want to start a security company. And I tied it all together and poof, voila, within 1 year, I'm making $250,000 a year. And I've never looked back. I've been working on my own ever since then. And that's the story of my life. Everything I do has been, it's the same story. I have a vision. I self-actualize. I see it in the here and now. And then through the law of action, I do what needs to be done to reach that objective. So there's a certain way of thinking that gets me there. Don't expect people to come and give you anything or expect things just to happen. You've got to make it happen. Otherwise, nothing happens. So you've got to go out, take the calculated risks. Law of action says you got to actually go do something. So go do it and understand you're probably going to fail. Most people fail. Most people fail 9 times before they're successful the 10th time. The key is don't give up. Just keep going at it. Just keep changing your attack angles until you get to where you want to be. And at the end of the day, you'll reap the benefits, hopefully.
Let me ask you about the classes that you taught on the psychology of violence.
Yeah.
It boggles my, I don't know how many life lessons I'm going to learn in this 1 hour we're going to be spending with you. So pardon me if I'm a little flabbergasted. And I promise you, I usually don't get this way because I'm not a guy who finds himself at a loss for words very often. But, I'm really inspired by all of the things that you've accomplished and all of the ways that you've helped people accomplish their own things. And I appreciate that. But for a moment before I finish digesting all of the things that you've given us and specifically me in this hour, tell us about the classes that you developed and taught on the psychology of violence.
Yeah. So I was on the ground level when Henry Putnam University started off in San Jose, California. And their curriculum is centered on counterintelligence or intelligence and executive protection. So being on board in the early days, I came on as an instructor, and I ended up developing some of the classes on my own. And then the psychology of violence class, I actually was basically handed that class from a psychologist that he developed the class, and then he quit, and then they gave it to me. Now at the time I had a master's degree, but because of my background, this was a 500 series class. They allowed me to teach it anyways on as a master student. So that class was already developed. All I had to do was start tweaking it more and more, just, constantly developing the curriculum, updating it. And, but that class was centered on the idea, what compels people to carry out acts of violence, especially group violence, crowd dynamics and things like that. So that's what that was. And that's all related to to terrorism and counterterrorism and intelligence. So that's just one of the aspects of the degree program and one of the courses. So I taught that. I taught special weapons. I taught area study analyses. What else did I teach? I taught about 4 different courses there, and it was all online. And it was pretty cool. I mean, it was kind of time consuming because I had to get online with my students, teach, grade papers, and the pay wasn't great. The experience was, and I did that for about 7 years, I think, until I just got too busy to the point where I couldn't teach it anymore. But I find psychology of violence very interesting, especially what motivates people to do crazy things, to do violent things. And there's a lot of dynamics. There's social dynamics, and then of course there's psychology. You got the mass murderers, and then you've got the groups that just lose their gore and start the soccer match of violence and stuff like that. So there's a lot of dynamics in the human condition that a very famous psychologist, what was his name? Slips my mind. Anyways, man is a warring beast. I always believe that, or warring ape. I think there's a lot of truth to that. Man is a warring ape. And we've had 12,000 wars since the beginning of time, some form or another. So, anybody who thinks that man will ever be a peaceful animal, it's crazy. It's just in our nature. We're driven by 3 things: money, power, money. Those go hand in hand, and procreation. Money, power, and basically, procreate our own kind, and whatever that takes. A lot of men want power. They want to be king of the world. They want to have access to all the women. They want to have access to all the money. They want to have access to all the power. What a great place to be, right? So there are many tyrants out there and have been in history that have tried to, ascend to that level. So, and then there's always the guy on the bottom that's not going to allow that. But I found it very interesting. It was a cool course to teach. And like I said, I just couldn't, for about 7 years, I just couldn't keep up with it anymore. So I resigned and I moved on to doing some of the other things I'm doing. So now I take a lot of this information I have and I apply it to my business. I apply it to my optimal performance coaching classes. So it still has relevance in my life, and I still find it very fascinating to read about stuff like that.
Yeah, when you want to find out more about Dale, basically the best places to go is Facebook. He's got a website, but if you go to Facebook, he'll engage with you there for sure, and he's got everything. He's got classes. You can absolutely talk to him ear to mouth and get some coaching. You're an incredible dude, man. It's inspirational. John and I keep pretty full slates, but your slate is fuller. So, there's more room for capacity and prioritizing and keeping after it and just incrementally trying to get better. I mean, you look back on a body of work and it's just constant activity, and it's cool to hear about, and it's clearly possible because you're doing it, and what a developed and enriched guy you are. I just think the world of what you're doing.
Well, and I just want to say before we close it out is I am just a normal guy. That's the funny part is, I never realized.
Bullshit.
Really. I never realized how much I had achieved because I just thought it was normal because the guys from the unit, my peers in the unit were the same way, right? These uber achievers. And I was just being one of the boys, and I never realized until later in life just how much and it wasn't until other people brought it to my attention. I started getting a lot of messages, people calling me going, hey, how were you able to do this, do that? How were you able to do so much? And then the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, I guess I have done a lot. But it's not because I'm Superman. It's not because I got some kind of, genetic advantage or anything like that. I mean, my IQ is just maybe a little bit above average. My education, I'm educated, but I'm not that daggone smart. I had to work for it. I think the only reason I've been successful is because I was willing to work harder than the next guy. And, it's not about outworking my peers or anybody else. It's about being all that I can be. I still live by that Army motto, be all that you can be. And, man, when I look at something, I go, man, I'd like to do that. And if I have any doubt about doing it, I just tell myself, be all that you can be and go for it, and I do it. And, that's the only thing that drives me, man, is, just look, I can sleep when I'm dead. I only sleep when I really have to. And I probably sleep 4 or 5 hours a night, maybe. The older I get, the less sleep I need. But maybe that's not a good thing. But, I wake up and as soon as my eyes open up, man, I'm ready to get out of bed and start doing things. Hell, I got up this morning at 6 o'clock just so I can be on the radio show with you and mentor another student of mine. Actually, was prior to the show. So you just got to do it, man. Mikey, do it.
I like it.
I can't say anything to punctuate that, man. Thank you, Dale. We sure appreciate all that you've done for our country, fighting for our freedoms, and all the things that you continue to do to inspire us and to help us all realize our potential and get the most out of every minute of our lives as well. Man, we've had a lot of great guests, a lot of people I appreciate. Only a couple of times have I done the amount of self-reflection that I've done spending this hour with you and just seeing all of the things that you achieved in a way that really just was all about putting your nose to the grindstone and getting the damn work done. And so I leave here inspired, and I appreciate you. I just sent you my Facebook friend request. So when you see it on there, man, I'm in 100%.
Got it. I'll definitely add you. Well, I'm glad that, I'm happy that I heard that I've changed, and I'm changing lives even now. If I've inspired you to be a better person or to do more, then, mission accomplished for me. That's what it's all about at the end of the day, man. I don't have to improve myself anymore. I want to help other people improve. So if I can teach you one thing that makes your life better, then it's a good day for me. Thanks for having me on the show.
I learned that I should be like, I want to make $251,000 a year and be $1 better than Dale.
Well, I'm already higher than that, man. I'm
Son of a bitch.
I'm making $1 million a year, $10 million a year. So I've already upped it.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot.
Well, thanks again for having me on here. I appreciate it, guys.